Save on your faves at Big Lots. As your one-stop shop for household essentials, Big Lots has everything you need to keep your home sparkling. And now you can find all your favorite P&G brands available every day. Shop today through July 4th and you'll get a $10 Big Lots coupon on your receipt. Good on your next trip when you spend $30 on P&G products like Tide, Dawn, and Gain. This offer won't last long, so stop by Big Lots today.
Opportunity to broadcast your church live right here on JC Sports, WQEE, and Metro Atlanta area of Noonan. The benefits of being on the radio: spreading the word of gospel, first of all, keeping and retaining members, getting new members of your church, and getting your information out there for any programs going on. Sunday morning broadcast opportunities available just by calling 678-673-6318. Email us at 99classrock@gmail.com. WQE Recovery Church Programs. It's a great opportunity for your church to be heard.
I am Apostle Debra Harris, Pastor Apostle of Kingdom Connected Ministries International at 121 Hillwood Circle, Noonan, Georgia. Presenting Connecting the Kingdom. Connecting kingdom citizens, kingdom businesses, and advancing the kingdom of God in this hour. Join us each Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. with guests who are sharing their faith, business, and ministry. Now presenting Connecting the Kingdom. Good morning, radio audience. I am Apostle Debra Harris of Kingdom Connected Ministries International with my husband, Elder Kenneth Harris. And I am here today in the studio with a really dear friend of mine, and we're going to be talking about ministry. Now, some of you may be very interested in knowing that teaching is a ministry. Yes, yay, it is. And it is definitely something that we need to really take under consideration and love on God and let him love on us throughout the school year as we deal with the babies, deal with the young men and women. And so I have Becky in the studio today. She's going to introduce herself. She's been here before with me, but we're back today, and she's going to introduce herself, and we're going to get started talking about how did she make it through 2020. Now, when we were in the studio before, no 2020 in sight. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about, in general, how teaching is so different now and how much we need God to be a very big part of our lives in order to be successful. But then we had 2020 to come in, and things changed drastically. Right, Becky? And you had to change with it. Right. So introduce yourself, and let's just start talking a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I am Becky Sandlin, and I teach 7th grade. Well, this coming up year, I'll be teaching 6th grade at Madras. I've been there since 2006, but I've been teaching for about 17 years now. Okay. And it's all pretty much been with middle school.
Yes, and that's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome because I've had the opportunity to work with elementary school, and I've coached on the high school level, and of course I'm retired teaching in the middle school grades, so I was able to see somewhat of a variation or difference, and I will tell you that I was so glad to be in middle school as compared to elementary school. And that was for me. You know, everybody's not like that. But middle school definitely was my cup of tea. Now, I never tried to teach on the high school level, but I coached on the high school level. And I didn't have a problem with that. I like that. But if I was going to teach on a high school level, of course, naturally, it would be health and physical education. Then probably would love to coach, but because of the scheduling, that would be a major conflict.
Right.
So that's why I would not want to be in the high school. Would not have wanted to be. Several people tried to get me to go to the high school level just to coach, but I refused because I didn't want to have to travel out of Noonan, Coweta County, to other counties, and then getting back home 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and then, of course, you have to deal with, you have to make sure that every kid is picked up,
Right.
And so, no, I couldn't do that. But tell me, Becky, how did things change for you from, let's just say, from 2019 school year, which would have ended in May,
Right.
and then you picked up 2019, 2020 in August. How did things, it was, 2019 August was still normal.
Well, yes, you're right.
Yeah, and it got crazy in March of 2020.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Well, I also, for me, it was a complete dependency on the Lord because, as you know, my husband died December 2019. So just as everything was starting to be unraveled, but also trying to claim some kind of schedule in my life again.
Yes.
Then we went right into the pandemic.
Yes.
So that was, I don't know if that was something that, I think I was still on autopilot, like grace, complete grace.
Absolutely.
So when it wasn't, I think because it was such a surprise to everybody.
Yes.
Then there was also a relief that not a whole lot, this sounds really bad, was expected from us academically.
Yeah.
And that really was a relief because we didn't know what we were doing when we were all forced home.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, the kids, because if you're listening and you're a parent, you were given that option that, are you happy with where your kids are with their grades right now?
Yes.
And then, see ya. Like you're done with school, which was crazy.
It was real crazy.
Or if you want to take advantage of this time to still have the teaching, from online, then we would provide that. And so, honestly, it kind of provided, there wasn't so much focus on data.
Right.
And, as far as gathering data as much, and I was able to just really focus on the kids that showed up and loving them and having fun with them.
Right.
But it was difficult, like when I would forget to be on camera or when the alarm in the house went off and everybody that had earbuds were deaf, temporarily.
Right.
Things that we were just really trying to navigate with technology, much less with teaching.
Of course, yes.
And so, and kids loved showing their pets. I felt like I was in elementary school because, inevitably there would be like a pig show up or a dog or an iguana or whatever.
Wow.
And so that was kind of funny too because, it just, even those little things were reminders of the kids just wanting to be seen. Being known.
That's good. That's a good thought.
And I would wake up in the morning and, of course, just pray, oh, God, help me do this. But one thing I always do pray is just, God, help me be less so that you can be more. Empty me of anything that is of selfish gain or that would put a spotlight on me.
Yes.
And help me to just really glorify you in all that I say and do and love these kids, and you already know the challenges, you already know what they're facing. And another thing that I was really reminded of, not necessarily in front of the camera or with the kids, but just in conversation with people, was that there's a lot of stress with parents during this time navigating all of this.
Yes.
So in that time that I had those kids in front of me, I had an opportunity to provide a fun, safe place.
Yes.
And that was huge to me.
Good,
that was something that I was able to carry over this year too is just to know that financial stress is no joke, you know, in a family. I mean, I've gone from 2 incomes to 1, and so I know without just having that dependency on the Lord to say, okay, this is no surprise to you. I can't imagine being a kid in a family whose parents don't depend on the Lord.
Yes,
and
that would be
so,
hard.
Yeah, and so my prayer just every single day would be, you know, God, help me see these kids how you see them.
Yes.
I don't have to know their details, but just depend on you.
Right.
And, you know, there were some days that I don't know, I didn't do it all right, but I could look back on it and go, wow, there's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of smiles.
Yes.
You know, and these kids know they're important. And so.
Yes. So, that's, you know, you said a lot of what I would consider powerful things just then. And from a sub perspective, because I was subbing.
Even for me.
Yes, absolutely. And then come March, right before the school shut down, I had just finished a sub job. I think I was with, I had taken Miss Lau's place. So I was on your hall. You were back by then. I think you were back.
Probably.
Yeah, you were back. Yeah. So I was on your hallway. I was subbing for Miss Lau. And you all had to take a survey to see how many people had internet access. So I remember Coach Reed coming to me and he said, you know, there's a virus out and they said it's crazy, crazy deadly. He said, this survey, I guarantee you, has a lot to do with whether or not we're going to remain in school. We may be out of school for a week or 2. Okay, so after I subbed that job, it was over. I mean, I never had a chance to come back for the remaining of the year because the school shut down.
Right.
And I thought, wow, really, what happened had never happened.
Correct.
In our entire world.
That's right.
You know, it had never happened. We've never seen school being shut down. You know, everything else shuts down, but not the school.
Right.
School has to go on. It has to move forward. But when the schools shut down, and I mean they were shutting down just like one after the other.
That's right.
We're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. And I'm like, and then when we got the message that Coweta County wasn't going back, I was like, wow. And then all of the other problems started to exist, like, you know, how are they going to eat? These kids
right.
come to school to eat. How are they going to eat? So, you know, they started working on those details, and I was a part of that as well. And, and my daughter, you know, my daughter, Amber, she's teaching. She's pre-K. And she was like, Mama, how will pre-K do virtual?
Right.
And, of course, they couldn't.
Right.
They really couldn't. Well, from March until May, they did something. Let me just put it like this. They did something. But my heart went out to you all because I just saw a major adjustment for everybody. Now, some teachers are they are tech savvy. They get it. They can get on there. They can maneuver. And even if it's something new, you know, some people can pick it up really fast. But not all. So my heart went out to teachers that had to just get it. You had to get it.
Right.
You know, you had to listen, you had to read, you had to understand, because those kids depended on you all. You know, and we know that the kids were they had no problem with that. Right. No problem with getting on virtual. I'm going to share this and then I'm going to let you come in with another question. I saw a video where the mom was talking to the 5-year-old, or 4-year-old. And when I tell you that young lady was, I'm just going to say 5-year-old. When I tell you that 5-year-old was exceptionally smart, she was, okay, they were doing virtual. So this had to be during all of this time. They were doing virtual. And she was telling her mom about how she was not on the class. She was not in the class that day because she was fidgeting with.
Oh, I
did
saw
you see
this
that?
video.
Wasn't that cute? I mean, I'm just like, my mouth was wide open. I said, this little child understands better
This is
what she's doing than most adults. And I mean,
That's right.
she was just. I mean, she was using all of the technical terms.
Yes, she was.
And she was applying them right. And so me and my daughter and my husband, we were all listening to it, and I was just in awe. I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. So, and I shared that to say the kids understood, because a couple of times when I subbed, they were like, you have to do this. You need to do this. And I'm like, okay, tell me. Help me. Tell me what I need to do, because I know what I'm doing. And of course I called on, but they knew. So my heart went out to you all as teachers, because your job became extra hard.
No kidding.
You know?
Right.
And some of you get it. You know how to maneuver. You know how to get on there and do that stuff. But I know what I'm thinking in my mind was, okay, you're already praying hard. Because you had just gotten over, when you didn't get over, but you had just dealt with your husband dying.
Right.
So you were already praying, just trying to come to work.
Right.
But now, bam.
Well, and navigating as a parent.
And a parent. Yes.
So my heart could go out to the parents.
Yes.
Because at the time, I had one that was going to miss her entire senior year.
Yes.
And graduation.
So true. Forgot about that.
A junior that was not going to be doing what he absolutely loved, and that was drill team, rifle spinning.
Right, and that's Garrett.
That's right.
Now,
and then
Garrett graduated. I think I saw pictures.
He did. He goes into the Army.
Awesome.
Yes,
awesome.
July 26th.
Okay.
But then there was JD at that time, a sophomore, that well, at that time, I guess, the beginning of all that, a freshman, but going into his sophomore year, that cross country. So, I mean, they were all involved in something that had shut down.
Wow.
And, Twister and charades at home can only go so far.
I know, right?
But no, that was difficult because, it was intensified at our house of Jason's loss. Or of our loss, But at the same time, I really could empathize with parents that, those were our details. But COVID took a lot of lives.
Yes.
And I didn't know, talking to kids, what they were dealing with.
Right.
And autoimmune diseases where, that in their house where maybe the kid was fine, but now they were forced to stay in and have a mask and all these things because of the fear of whatever was going on in their house.
Right.
So overall, I think that what helped me through this entire year was just empathy. And I saw that shift too. Middle school gets a rap for like having mean girls and lots of cliques and all that. But if anything, because kids were in and out of quarantine, when we would have to, what's it called when you're like having to track them, be able to keep up, like if one person has COVID and then they've had to track, that, and then it takes out a bunch of kids, to quarantine. Okay, so some kids that, because of their social environment, were in and out of quarantine.
I know.
All the time. And, but because of that, I saw empathy sweep across our middle school like I've never seen. And I've been there a long time,
Right.
But it was like, even kids that would be, I'll just say it as it is, slackers, or whatever, that just weren't applying themselves, or maybe they would normally be one that would carry a class in a negative direction or something. Kids had so much patience.
Yes, they did. I saw that from a sub perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it just created a whole nother environment to teach in.
It did.
And, I mean, they were funny, like, when I would be teaching my heart out to face-to-face thinking I was also teaching to online, and then I look over and the chat says, "You're not presenting." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how long have you not seen the presentation?" You know? But as far as just being empathetic with me as a teacher, and just the patience that people had with each other, it was we didn't have the same discipline that we usually have.
Oh, no, you did not.
And so it was a different challenge, but these kids were sweet, you know? They really were. They knew how to con their parents, though. That was a little problem. You were talking about how the kids knew the technology.
Oh,
you know as well as I do. They can know it so well that they also know how to manipulate it.
They do.
And so I will say one change I really liked was having, and I hope that when I say this comes across the right way, but I think parents appreciated this too, because they could stay at work and have a parent conference with us.
Yes, that's true.
But what I was going to say is, on that parent conference, if it was like Zoom or something, we could easily show work from the screen.
Oh, awesome.
And just kind of be like, okay, in 3, 2, 1, your kid's going down. You know?
Oh, yeah.
As far as the interesting and creative ways that they told their parents of why their work wasn't there, you know?
I know. And you know, I was thinking in terms of the teachers, but you're right. We have to feel the same way about the parents, because now you have parents that are not very tech savvy. Without the kids.
And grandparents.
And grandparents. But you have the kids that know how to maneuver. They know how to fix it.
Right.
They know how to keep them from knowing. They just knew how to do. The kids know how to do all of this stuff.
That's right.
And so I guess I would need to really feel the same way about parents. And of course, my girls, you know, already graduated from high school, already graduated from college, they're working, and I did not have to deal with that, you know, that kind of thing that most parents had to deal with. But, you know, I'm thinking as we're talking that we are going to be dealing with, we're going to be having conversations about COVID for some time now, because it brought a lot of devastation, lots of disappointments. It brought a lot of craziness, a lot of chaos, uncertainties. I mean, just you name it, it happened. And I just think we're going to be having conversations about it. Or shall I put it like this? Whatever conversations we have, it's all going to be pointing back to what happened in 2020.
You're right. Pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah.
You're right.
And the thing of it is, where is end COVID? Is that in sight anywhere? Because you know, people, they're still talking about it.
That is true.
And still trying to say that they are having cases. So I'm like, come on now. Let's do something different. Because it's kind of crazy. It's even more crazier than it was. But I just think we're going to have a lot of conversation going forth about what happened in 2020. But that's the reason why I wanted to talk, because you would actually be the first teacher that I've talked with on this broadcast or the Facebook Live broadcast about how did you all manage, because did your workload increase?
Yes.
Yes, it had to.
Yes, that was probably the biggest thing that stayed at the top of my prayer list as far as trying to balance.
Yes.
Because I could get this from both sides. I understood the empathy of the kids being able to turn in work late.
Okay.
Because of every situation, that could come up.
Yes.
And honestly, something so confidential we didn't have to know. If we just took it as, hey, we're having really big, because there is a lot of anxiety that increased in these kids, and we would hear that from parents.
I know.
And a lot of I would have kids that would miss class, and the email would be about having to go to their counselor or having to go to their therapist.
Wow.
Lots of anxiety.
Wow.
So, of course, you don't say, well, just remember, we got that test or we've got that project. So you asked me about the workload increasing. At the end of the 9 weeks, I was still receiving things from the first of that 9 weeks. So it was a constant grading.
Wow.
And that was really difficult. My kids would tell you that I would be up later than I needed to be or earlier than I needed to be, and in all honesty, some parents didn't understand.
Right.
When work would come in and then I didn't just get right on it and grade because there was also the current work.
Right.
So yes, I could complain a lot about that, but I think that just sums it up, that yes, the workload increased. Thankfully our admin was very understanding, and we just did what we could,
And I think too, I just from my perspective and what I was able to see, I thought the school system, and not just Coweta, but the school systems overall made pretty good adjustments. As far as, okay, we're going to have in-class school and then we're going to have virtual school.
Right.
You decide.
Right.
Now, I had my complaints about all of that at the beginning, but as I continued to sub here and there, and I was able to see how it worked. Now, I will tell you, as a sub, I did not like that virtual teaching.
Right.
In other words, you stay home and you teach from home. That was not for me. I did not like that. I didn't like that.
Right.
Because one thing I am used to doing, I'm used to coming in the classroom. You have your work already set for me to give to the kids. I give the kids their work. They get busy. And then I can watch and monitor them. But at the same time, I don't have to hear all this back and forth.
Yes.
That I did not like that. I did not like being in that classroom with you all teaching virtually, and I'm having to hear, all of this stuff back and forth. You teach. You were teaching. By the way, I didn't do you. I never did you. But you are having to teach, and I'm having to. It's almost like I was like a student.
Right.
I'm just sitting there thinking.
Exactly.
And then the same lesson, of course.
Four times
a day. I'm like, ooh. If 3:30 don't hurry up and get here, I'm about to walk out.
Right.
I didn't like that.
I know.
I didn't like that. Now, some subs that may have been right down their alley, but for me, I personally did not like it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not going to ever sub again, but to be honest with you, I just don't, because y'all won't do that anymore.
No, because this next year,
it's going to be the virtual school.
Exactly.
Only. So if you're virtual, you're going to be in that school.
Right.
But if you're in person, you're going to be within the in-person school. So yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Thank God, because if I'm going to sub, I don't know. It's probably me.
No,
I just
get
didn't
it.
like it.
I get it. I'm the same way if we're having to learn on something with the video or something, the day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to watch this 4 times, so I can imagine.
And then, too, you have to teach it. But you teaching it is different than me sitting.
Oh, completely.
And having to listen to it.
Right.
Or watch it.
I think that was probably the most challenging for me, too, is because we had to video our teaching, so any kid that was absent or whatever could go ahead and get that.
That was a lot of work.
I feel like my strengths are playing to what the kids' interests are, and so to pre-record a lesson was difficult for me.
Yes, I imagine.
It felt boring.
Yes.
Because I love that when a kid's interest is ignited in a situation, and
Yes.
then you can tie it into the lesson
Yes.
and all that.
Yes, I agree.
And you know,
You couldn't do that.
No, you couldn't.
Not with the pre-recordings. It's just,
Right.
It was just like, okay, I'm gonna, here it is, whatever.
Right.
But you know, it was like when I had to sub for you for the several days. You know, when you're at the when your husband passed.
right,
Of course, COVID was nowhere around.
right,
And you had the lessons, and I was able to take those lessons along with the para teacher. I can't remember her name, Miss Rhodes.
right.
And she and I was able to actually teach. You know, I mean,
Exactly.
not teach, but I was able to say, okay, guys, what are you doing? You know, this is what you should be doing. And I said, and I was able to say, when you finish that, then we're going to go here. And then, of course, because of the length of time, I really had to make sure that they were doing their work, turning in
Right.
extra work, and I had to really stay on top of them. So my job at that particular time was a little bit more intense than it would be for a normal sub day, because you were out several
Right.
days.
Right.
And I just didn't feel right just saying, okay, just sit down and do the paper and give it to me when you finish.
But
you
at
know?
least you had the paper. Like,
Yes,
at least you
yes.
had it, and not
Yes.
just a click of a turn in and not know
and
if it's
all
even
the
there.
hearing of you teaching, and I'm like, ugh. And you know, my good friend Miss Moss, I had to. I think I did her class, and I did Coach Reed's class.
Yeah.
I don't think I did it for anybody else, as
The
far as the
virtual?
virtual teaching.
Okay.
Because when I had subbed earlier, I don't think you all had gotten to that point where if you stay home, if you're not really sick, if you have to quarantine, because that was the case with those two. They weren't sick; they had to quarantine.
Right.
So they had to teach. And I think the situation, because when I was in Mrs. No, I take that back. I had to go to Evie, Miss Hahn's room.
Right.
Now she did teach from home, but it just, for some reason, it was different. Now those are my good friends, Miss Moss and Coach Reed, and they did great. They were fine. I just didn't like it.
Right.
You know, it had nothing to do with their teaching. I just didn't like having to sit there.
I
And
can't even imagine math virtually, like with Miss Moss. Like,
Yeah.
she's amazing, but I can't imagine. I would be a student that would not excel virtually
Yeah.
at all.
Well, you know, of course, you know how that goes. Some of the classes were great. They were
Yes.
like, "Oh, we got it, Miss Moss. We understand." And then some were like, "I don't understand what you're talking about, Miss Moss." And I'm like, listen. But she was fine. She did great. But you know what? This was another problem, which is now a bigger problem. Based on where she lives, she had internet issues.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was one of her concerns, because it was her internet. She had to actually move from one spot in the house to another spot in the house. And now, for some reason, from what I've seen and heard from other people, the internet is bad. I mean, it's not like it used to be before
Right.
COVID.
Yeah, that was another challenge, because you would have some kids that would get half the lesson and, you know, have to come back and you could really tell the kids that had a lot of autonomy, you know, that wanted to do well and they didn't need a lot, you know, anybody over
right.
them. That would stress them out, because
Exactly.
they were used to being independent, to getting their work done, and then all of a sudden technology presented itself as a issue for them. So, but yeah, when they would have technology issues, and like I said, I mean, that really raised their anxiety, because they were used to being that independent.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had that issue. That
Right.
was a major issue
Exactly.
during 2019, 2020. And it really still is a problem. Okay, because number one, you have more people on the internet now than you had before.
That's
I mean,
true.
actually depending on the internet and using it all day long.
Yep, that's
Just
true.
think about the number of kids that should be in school, would be in school, and they would not necessarily be all over the place trying to get internet access.
That's true.
But they will be at the schools with the same provider.
And then parents at work,
yes,
at home.
Yes.
I mean, on the same network.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And then, of course, with the tornado, it
goodness.
didn't help.
No, not
It
at
didn't
all.
help the internet because our internet, I'm going to say at the church and at home, has just really gone down. And even Verizon, with my phone, you have unlimited data, whatever. And I'm like, what is going on around here? I think it's more to it than that. I think it's more to it than the tornado and COVID. I think it's some other stuff going on, but I'm not Get Smart, so I can't release that information right now. Do you remember Get Smart? Do you remember the television show?
I don't remember.
Ron,
that.
do you remember Get Smart? This is the guy that used to go through all the doors. When it first came on, he would just be going through different doors.
Doors?
Yeah, doors.
Oh.
And they would open and close behind him.
Okay.
I don't even know if I understood why he was doing that. But that's what he did. And it was called Get Smart. He was kind of like a private detective, right?
Oh, got it.
FBI agent.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
got it.
So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. I can't release that information. As if I have some.
That's funny.
But I know being a former teacher and pretty much just retiring, feel like I haven't retired because I was still doing, all of the subbing and at the same school. And some teachers are like, oh my God, every time we look, we see you. Are you sure you retired? I'm like, I'm going to show you.
That's
Just
funny.
keep on.
That's
I'm
funny.
going to show you I'm retired. But I enjoyed it. And I enjoy, doing the subbing here and there. But I saw the difficulty, and I saw also what you mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk about was the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it changed drastically.
It did.
And I think it had a lot to do with the mask. Yeah.
Probably so.
Mask, uncertainties.
Right.
This is not normal. As long as I've been in school all of my 7 years, I've never seen anything like this. What is going on? All of that played a role, but I do think that the mask, played a bigger role because, it's almost like you don't want to, it's like you had to talk behind something.
Right.
And it's like, maybe I just don't want to talk today because my mouth is covered. Now, that was the case for, I think, a lot of the kids. Right. But then there were some kids that it didn't matter. They were just going to say what they had to say anyway. But it did play a major role. So, what were you saw discipline. Y'all really didn't even, I don't even think the administration had a lot of discipline issues. I know the first part of 2021, it would have been the first part of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more so here after January, you think? Or after winter break, maybe?
I don't know, because honestly, that was another thing that presented itself. We stayed more to our teams.
Yes.
And so...
That's true.
I didn't even know the other kid. We usually are in hallways together,
yes,
or we see the kids together, or... I would not have been able to recognize most kids on the 7th grade hall if they were not on our team.
Right.
And so I feel very blessed that, we would even have subs tell us, like, y'all have a really good team as far as the discipline with the kids.
You all did.
So
yeah.
I am unaware of, like, a lot of the probably other challenges that, teams had, which also presented itself for us as teachers, because working at Madras, that we are a close bunch, we're a family.
Yes.
And that was hard too because we didn't see each other. We didn't have faculty meetings, you know. And and who wants to be on your camera during a Zoom faculty meeting you know, like you feel like you're on like, hey, here I am, you know, and I didn't like that. So then we would just be like the kids and have like the letter or our little emoji thing up there or something and just listen. And so there was a great amount of support if we needed it from each other, but you had to be intentional, you know, to see each other. Absolutely. And so I missed that part. I missed just the camaraderie.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You know?
Because that's who we are.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And our support, you know, as far as just, not that we take it for granted, but my goodness, what a gift when you're just able to just laugh together in the hallway or see that smile or have that hug.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
You know, or even with like high five the kids, like that physical touch. I know my love language is physical touch anyway, you know. Right. And so with friendships, like just being able to high five or put your arm around somebody, or, you know, as far as teacher-kid relationship, just touching them on the shoulder, just like, good job, you know, things like that.
And you all couldn't do that, right?
No, you couldn't. And then to smile, I'm like looking in the mirror, like, could you tell I'm smiling with my eyes, you know? But, yeah, so I felt like, you know, we'd have to be really intentional to get, but I will say this, if I could encourage any teacher in the way that, you know, I came across a video the other day and I was looking for something else and I didn't know what it was and I pushed play and it was me actually sending it to somebody saying, please pray for this school year, and I was referring to this last one. Right. And I was like, I have always been able to do groups and connect with the kids and like be spread out all over the room and, you know, that's true, talk to them and love them and, you know, I don't know how to connect and I feel like and, you know, I was kind of like, which is, you know me, which is not me to be in a panic mode, but it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to connect with them. And I'll tell you, it came back to what my master's, like my thesis in my master's, was building relationships between students and teachers increases academic success. And I thought about how can I build that relationship. So I'll tell you something as simple as this. At the end of class, every single class, and you may remember this if you were in my room if they did this, but I would say, okay, class is over. 3, 2, 1. What is your truth? And the kids would say, I am valued. I am purposed. I am loved.
Oh, okay.
And every kid, every class, you know, I mean, some of them obviously would like scoot out of there, but either they'd type it or they'd unmute or they would say it out loud. If they weren't loud enough, I'd say, I didn't hear you. Proclaim it like you mean it.
That's good.
I like that. But some of them would come out and say, I'll say it, but I don't believe it. Oh, God. And that was a clear indication of who I needed to be praying for. You know, God would just illuminate that. Or I'd talk to them and say, okay, you may not believe it, but let me tell you why I believe it and why it's important to me. And just letting those kids know that they have complete purpose. And one of the things I would say, because you said how much you enjoy working with middle school, you know, middle school gets a bad rap. But when these kids feel like that they have meaning and purpose, and you put them right in the palm of your hand, you know? Right. Then one of the things that I would say is not so much looking at it like I'm going to make such a difference in your life or, you know, want to or whatever. But instead, I would tell them, you know, out of all the kids in the whole wide world, my life apparently would not look the same without you in it. Or you wouldn't be here, you know. So for 180 days or however many days, you know, we're together, I'm excited to see why are you individually, why are you in my life, you know? How is my life going to be different because you're in it? And I'm going to take full responsibility and knowing that I was picked for your life, you know. So if we can do this together, then we get through this school year and look back and we think, wow, I know why she was in my life, or
Yes,
I know why that kid
yes,
was in my
awesome,
life.
awesome.
And just letting them know that they have that value and they have that purpose. I just pray that more teachers would really take that responsibility and
Yes.
see it as an opportunity, because if you're praying for someone, you cannot be ticked off with them for too long.
Oh, no.
Because you see it, you have empathy, you
Yes.
know? I mean, that's how I do parenting. If I'm praying for those kids, I'm not,
Yes.
because you see it in a different light. You see us as just still on the course, still running and still trying to all get to that goal of hearing, well done,
Yes.
good and faithful servant.
And that's the ministry part of it. And I can
Yes.
say ministry part for you because you're a Christian.
Right.
You are a believer in Christ Jesus. You love the Lord. You're passionate about the things of God. You're passionate about people. And you want people to excel. You want them
Right.
to do better. You want them to be better. And I'm listening to what you ask the kids to say at the end of class, which would be the same as positive affirmations.
Right.
And as we relate that to the scripture, the Bible says, so as a man thinketh in his heart,
Right.
so is he.
Exactly.
And it also says in Job 22 and 28, I believe, if you decree a thing, it shall be established, and God's light will shine upon it. So when we open our mouths to speak anything positive, we are speaking this thing into existence. So even though your mind may be telling you, I don't believe it right now, but if you say it
That's right.
enough,
That is right.
you will start to believe it. Because the problem is we speak too many negative,
Oh, goodness,
condemning
yes.
things
Yes.
over our lives. We do it to ourselves as well.
That's right.
As well as other people. So now, once we know better, we are, need to strive to do better. So now we really have to be those that are going to speak into our own lives as well as speak into the lives of other people so that their mind would change. And I don't know if you know Dr. Caroline Lee. She was a neuroscientist. And she said God told her to leave her career as a neuroscientist. Now, in our minds, when we say the word, I'm going to put it like, when I say the word, I see money.
Right.
I see big money.
Right.
I see her making money like unbelievable.
Correct.
Okay, but she said God told her to leave her career, and she did. And he says, I want you to make this a ministry because people need to understand how the mind works. And when you understand how the mind works, then you apply. I want you to take my word and apply it to your study and make sense out of who I created you to be. And so she tells us in this book, because I ordered the book, and I read the book, and in the book it tells us, she says that, anytime you do anything for at least 21 days consecutively, it becomes a habit.
Awesome.
And it becomes a part of who you are. So, and I started thinking, I'm like, wow. I started thinking, and I'm like, wow. I can't even imagine the number of things I've done consecutively 21 days. And now it's a habit. I'm doing it. So now I need to be positive. I need to be intentionally positive about doing things 21 days plus. Because according to her, your mind, once you start doing something and you continue to do that at least 21 days, your mind locks it in and it automatically tells you this is what you're supposed to do, or this is who you are. So I believe that now, and I tried that with decrees, or we can say positive affirmations. Now, one thing that I've learned from that is it increased my faith tremendously.
Well, see, you probably don't know this, or maybe I haven't been intentional to tell you this, but when we first started becoming closer, I can picture exactly where I was in the cafeteria, right by the table, and I was confiding in you some things that going on, and you told me, you said, the power of life and death is in the tongue.
It's in the tongue, yes.
And you were explaining to me how to reword something and I remember the lesson you gave me a little ways back, because I said, I don't want this conversation to end. We got to get together, and you talked to me.
I remember.
And when you did, and you were sharing with me how God is the giver of all good gifts, and how we do not have to accept everything in our life as a gift. I mean, as from God.
Right,
and
absolutely.
So instead, know that God's not going to waste it, and He's going to purpose it somehow if He allows it.
Yes.
But I do not have to accept, like, for example, I remember one simple turnaround for Jason and I both was not to say he has leukemia, but you said to say he was diagnosed with.
Yes,
and
it
that
makes a difference.
And just that turnaround really revolutionized my thinking in so many ways.
Wow.
To where I also pick up when other people are doing it and knowing how to pray over them.
Yes.
That they would not succumb to that negativity.
Yes.
Yes. To be able to pray and just say, by the authority of the blood of Jesus, I rebuke that mindset.
Yes, absolutely.
And to see how the kids do that, and how the students. But yeah, you started that in me.
Well, praise God.
And so whatever was, I know you used your own testimony, in sharing that with me.
Yes.
But everything that I've shared probably about the I am valued, I'm purposed, I'm loved, everything that I would purposely decree or to put, speak that over my own children, at home.
Yes.
And just it really came from the power and that truth of the power of life and death is in the tongue.
It is.
And you started that in me.
Praise God. Praise God. I give God all the honor and glory, because that was the same truth that was given to me. And we really have to be intentional about that, because other people in their conversation with you will try to redirect your thinking or your conversation or your words.
You're right.
We'll go back to any kind of sickness. For instance, if the doctors diagnose you with some kind of sickness, and if you share it with other people, their first thing, oh my gosh, you have. Okay, no.
Right.
No, because by you telling me I have,
you receive
it's giving me ownership to that thing.
Exactly.
That I don't want.
That's right.
So I don't want that. So no, I don't have that. And then if you try to explain it to them, it's just like they will take the life or joy out of you just trying to explain it.
Right.
What do you mean you don't have it? Because I don't.
Right.
But that's what the doctor, and I better understand now that we thank God for doctors. We thank God for their study and their time spending in school and in college. But I also understand now that they really don't know no more than you and I know, to be honest with you. They are practicing what they know.
Yes.
They're guessing. That's why they ask about your history, your parents' history, because they want to put two and two together. Now, unless they open you up and they're able to see something bad, other than that, they don't know. I mean, I say that because I've been to the doctors about different things and they've missed it. They missed
exactly.
it. But if I accepted it, then my mind is going to start to tell me, I have it, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to receive it? Are you going to accept it? Are you going to work? And you know what happens? Here comes the stress.
Exactly.
And by the time you get through stressing and worrying, you do have it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You
definitely.
brought it in and you said, I got it, so go ahead and do what you're going to do to me. No.
Well, and you said that a while ago about how the more you decree and declare something increases your faith.
It increases
and
your
knowing
faith.
that faith is what we cannot see, but
Yes.
believing in the God that can and
Yes.
has walked before us and gone.
Yes.
And the victory, He works from the end, showing us the beginning,
Yes.
And knowing that victory, that's where I have to apply that. you know.
And and I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get ready to bring it to a close. Even last year with all of the COVID stuff, people, it was so much fear being inside it. I mean, they were just pouring fear all over us.
Right.
And that took that year needed for most people. They needed to decree and declare their freedom from it,
right,
their protection from it, and everything else, because the world told us that we were going to get it, and we either received it or we did.
That's right.
I refused. So, Becky, as we close, you shared a piece a few minutes ago about encouraging parents or teachers. Is there any one thing you can think of that you would share by way of encouragement? Any one thing?
I think just grace.
Okay.
I use this in my own crazy, unconventional parenting, and that is just remembering that, none of us have finished the race if we're still breathing. So as
Absolutely.
parents, we're not at the end of the finish line cheering on our kids. So give yourself some grace.
Yes.
And realize you are still running, and you're still running well, and you're trying to run well.
Yes.
You've got to, you can take this in all the symbolism that there is and stay hydrated and stay stay
Yes.
stretched out. Like, do all the things in your mind that are going to keep you diligent and focused on running right, while you're also able to gear and guide and encourage your kids.
Amen.
Because I think that when kids flip out, they're kids.
Yeah.
And they need discipline, but we need discipline so we don't flip out with them.
Yes. Good.
And that's as teachers too,
Yes. Okay.
So grace. Lots of grace.
Awesome. And again, radio audience, thank you for listening today. We've had a really great conversation about school, parenting, teachers, God. And so until next Tuesday, be blessed and be safe. Thank you, Pastor Ellison.
At General Motors, we make more than electric vehicles. We're helping to make the world a safer, more inclusive place for all. As the first automaker to support the Equality Act, General Motors celebrates and embraces diversity every day, especially during Pride Month. Which is why we're proud to team up with iHeartRadio to support Can't Cancel Pride and the LGBTQ+ community. Because everybody in means everybody. Learn more at gm.com.
Walmart.com is launching deals for days starting at 7 p.m. on June 20th with huge savings on the hottest items. Up to 40% off select tech, up to 50% off select toys, and up to 60% off summer fashion items. Get the deals while supplies last. That's deals for days starting June 20th at Walmart.com.